The night Elias Carter finally agreed to go on a blind date was the same night he realized how fragile hope could be, because hope has a way of breaking louder than silence when it shatters. He stood outside a quiet cafe with rain-soaked shoes, a borrowed jacket that still smelled like someone else's life, and a heart already tired from years of disappointment, unaware that inside, a woman who controlled boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Before the story unfolds any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of ordinary people, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories connect us across the world. Elias was a poor single father, the kind of man society rarely notices until he makes a mistake. His life revolved around survival, not dreams. Every morning before sunrise, he woke his 6-year-old daughter Lily, braided her hair with clumsy fingers, packed a lunch that looked the same every day, and walked her to the neighbor's apartment where an elderly woman watched her before school. He worked long hours at a warehouse, lifting boxes that felt heavier with every passing year, not because of their weight, but because of what they represented. Each box was another reminder that he had once wanted more from life. Once, he had believed love could last forever. Once, he had trusted promises. Then Lily's mother left, choosing freedom over responsibility, leaving Elias with a child, unpaid bills, and a heart that learned to stay quiet. The blind date happened because of pressure, not hope. A coworker insisted that Elias deserved happiness, that loneliness was not a life sentence. He resisted for weeks, knowing he could barely afford rent, let alone romance. Eventually, exhaustion wore him down. He agreed, borrowing money for a decent meal, promising himself this was just one evening, nothing more. He had no idea who the woman was, only that she had also been pushed into this by friends who worried she worked too much and lived too alone. Inside the cafe, the woman sat at a corner table, shoulders trembling as silent tears rolled down her face. Her name was Victoria Hale, CEO of a global tech company, a woman feared by competitors and admired by employees. But titles mean nothing when grief arrives uninvited. That day, Victoria had signed papers that ended a chapter of her life she had fought desperately to save. Years of ambition had cost her everything else. She had lost someone she loved, not to death, but to neglect, and the realization crushed her in a way no business failure ever had. The blind date was supposed to distract her, to remind her she was still human, still capable of connection. Instead, it arrived at the worst possible moment. When Elias stepped inside, the warmth of the cafe contrasted sharply with the cold reality he carried. He spotted Victoria instantly, not because she looked powerful, but because she looked broken. For a moment, he considered leaving. He told himself he did not belong in a place where someone so clearly out of his world sat drowning in sorrow. But something about her pain felt familiar. It mirrored his own nights of silent crying after Lily fell asleep, when the weight of being both parents pressed down on his chest. They sat together in heavy silence, not speaking, not smiling, simply sharing the same air. Elias felt small, out of place, embarrassed by his worn shoes and rough hands. Victoria felt exposed, ashamed that she could not even hold herself together for a stranger. Time moved strangely, stretching and folding in on itself. And then, in a moment that would haunt Elias long after, Victoria leaned forward and whispered something so soft, so raw, that it cut straight through him. What she shared was not about wealth or power or success. It was about emptiness. She confessed that she had everything the world admired and nothing that truly mattered. She spoke of choosing work over love until love finally chose to leave. She admitted she was tired of being strong, tired of winning while losing herself. Her words were not dramatic, but they were devastating because Elias heard his own fears reflected back at him, twisted into a different shape. He realized then that pain does not care about bank accounts. It finds everyone eventually. But what broke his heart was not her sadness. It was the understanding that someone like her could never choose someone like him. Elias saw the invisible wall between them, built from money, status, and worlds that never touch. He imagined Lily's worn shoes, the eviction notices, the nights counting coins, and felt a deep, aching certainty settle in his chest. This was not a beginning. This was a reminder of everything he could never offer. The evening ended quietly. No promises were made. No plans followed. Elias walked home through the rain, each step heavier than the last. He replayed her whispered words again and again, not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. They told him that even if hearts could connect, lives sometimes could not. He reached his apartment, tucked Lily into bed, and stared at the ceiling long after sleep refused to come. That night, he felt poorer than ever, not in money, but in hope. Days turned into weeks. Life returned to its routine rhythm of work, parenting, and quiet endurance. Elias convinced himself the night meant nothing, that it was just another story to lock away. Yet something had changed. Victoria's vulnerability lingered in his mind. It reminded him that strength was not about silence, and that asking for help did not make someone weak. Slowly, almost without noticing, Elias began to open up. He talked more to Lily, laughed more freely, allowed himself small moments of joy without guilt. Across the city, Victoria struggled too. She returned to her glass offices and endless meetings, but something inside her resisted going back to the way things were. The memory of Elias stayed with her, not because of romance, but because of his quiet dignity. He had listened without judgment, without expectation. No one had done that for her in years. She began questioning her life, her choices, the wall she had built so carefully. Fate has a strange way of circling back when people are ready. Months later, Victoria's company launched a community outreach program aimed at supporting struggling families. Elias attended one of the events with Lily, not knowing who funded it. When he saw Victoria across the room, helping children with homework, dressed simply, smiling genuinely, his heart froze. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything unsaid returned. This time, there were no tears. There was understanding. Their connection grew slowly, painfully aware of reality. Victoria learned about Elias's sacrifices, his love for Lily, the quiet heroism of surviving without bitterness. Elias saw Victoria beyond a CEO title, a woman learning how to live, not just succeed. Challenges remained. Society judged. Doubts whispered. Fear lingered. But change had begun, and it was real. Just before the ending, please comment below and share what you believe truly defines a rich life. Near the end of this story, if it touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, and share this video. Your support helps bring more stories of hope and humanity to people who need them most. In the end, Elias realized that heartbreak was not the opposite of hope, but part of its journey. That whispered confession, once a source of pain, became the spark that reminded him his heart was still alive. And Victoria learned that true success is not measured by what you own, but by who you become when everything else falls away. Their story did not end like a fairy tale, but it began something far more powerful. Two wounded souls choosing growth, kindness, and courage over fear. And sometimes, that is the most inspiring ending of all.